I mean, right now it's about to get busy. I'm about to get busy. I'm between busynesses right now. Mainly because my husband's on tour and we sort of tag team, family
switch off.
responsibilities. Yeah. So he's on tour. I have about some time off to gear up for a lot of recording in February. And then a residency coming up here at a club that I'm doing. And then the Bellies and I are putting together a festival, like a mini festival in Providence in August. So that's setting up for that.
So music is still a part of basically your everyday life? It
is, yeah. I mean, and I'm also a part-time postpartum doula. And that's something that I do 100% word of mouth at this point. I don't advertise. I don't have cards. I don't have a website. It's all...
Did you have doula cards
at this point.
previously?
I did, yep. I used to have doula cards in all the childbirth and, toddler and baby-oriented shops and the greater Boston area.
It's such a strange thing to me to sort of see a business card, pick it up, and then contact you.
Yeah.
Word of mouth seems like the way to go, right?
Word of mouth is the way.
It's such an intimate thing.
It is, and I feel like Referrals also sort of takes away the few times that there has been name recognition, it's been fine, but it started to
people knowing you from your music.
Right, or choosing for that reason. And it has been fine, 100%, and lovely experiences all around. But I did start to feel like maybe just having people refer would be easier. And then I also do, I'll go on to some of the forums and look for some sort of need-based SOS calls.
What's kind of a red flag? I mean, what are people looking for specifically that you would fit the bill?
Just sort of a lot of it is just connecting resources. It's a lot of just holding the child while the mom takes care of herself for a little bit, or I will run errands, or I will cook, set them up with food for a week or so, help with house care they need, help set up the nursery, help with sleep advice and swaddling. Mm-hmm. But all of that is in the shadow of breastfeeding, which is lactation is the number one probably thing that's the number one thing that I do.
So you're not really involved at all with the birthing process?
No, I trained as a birth doula, certified as a birth doula, but that became untenable in terms of my family life and work life. It was, I have my own kids. I can't disappear for 3 days at a time.
It's a 3-day process often?
No, I mean, sometimes, it depends on how long
it's like natural home childbirth?
No, no. I actually never did a home birth in the short time that I was doing that work. It's basically just wherever the birth is happening, you're there to assist. It's birth coaching and assisting. Not a medical position at all. No, not even close.
What does it look like in that case during the birthing process? I mean, is it moral support, or what do you actually kind of provide?
Sometimes it's emotional support. It's a lot of physical. There's positioning and breathing exercise. Mm-hmm. It really has everything to do with the birth plan of the mother and what the mother wants in that moment, which changes on in the room almost always. Yeah, but
you got to call an audible.
Sort of supporting the mother in what she wants her experience to be. Yeah. Yeah. And the partner too, a lot of partner support there too.
So that sounds like a situation for that though, where there's a lot of kind of planning and constant communication with them ahead of the actual birth that you're.
Yes.
Okay. You're a client or they're clients already.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, I haven't, that was really a super brief part of the bigger picture of what I do. And postpartum is all I do. And all I have done for years, so it works into the music thing because I can play. I can take gigs on either side when it works. And sort of weave it in with the other side of my work. So, and musically, it has been very busy in the past few years. So I've been doing less postpartum work than I was prior to this work resurgence in music. But I'm hoping. I mean, I miss the regular doula work, so I think I'll be segueing back into that a little bit.
How did you get into it in the first place?
It happened so naturally, and I think after my...
You say that, but it's not a thing that most people get into.
I feel like the main reason, and I don't want to turn this into I had a terrible experience, so I wanted to be, there is a piece of it where I didn't have a terrible experience, but my last birth, I felt like I was really stripped of power in the postpartum stage of the hospital, and just decisions were made without my knowledge, because I was it was a very difficult birth, and I was... Even having already gone through that process? I had hyperemesis gravidarum, which I had through both of my pregnancies, which required a PICC line in my heart and keeping me hydrated and keeping me nourished. And so I was tired going in. And so both, my last labor was 30 plus hours. And at the end of it all, I was in and out and didn't really, and they sort of made some decisions while my husband and I weren't there to advocate for ourselves or for our baby.
You think it's just sort of a matter of hospital bureaucracy?
It is, and I also feel there was real friction between myself and a couple of the staff in terms of what I wanted, and they made decisions based on what they thought was best for me.
What kind of requirement would cause friction in that case?
Taking the child away and putting them in nursery, which I had expressly asked them not to do. I wanted her next to me, but a decision was made that I needed to sleep more than I needed to have her near me. This is a very delicate, because there are moms that I have had who have made the decision to do that, and I support that 100%.
But it should be their decision.
It should have been. My point is not the action itself, is the fact that I had I'd made it very clear. It was written. I had a written birth plan that is not what I wanted. And it was, I was overridden because I fell asleep, and they just sort of.
Understandably.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Which I should have been to. But, yeah. So this is not a traumatic tale at all. Yeah. But I just sort of felt afterwards that if I had somebody more clear, and that wasn't the only thing that happened. There were other things which I don't want to get into, but it was. I just felt like for a few months after. Again, not traumatized in any way, but just sort of, I wish that we had a doula there just to sort of make sure that our plan was protected and that there was some gentle agency between myself and the staff. And so I kind of started looking into it, and then I took a couple of curiosity classes around it, and it just sort of pulled me in, and the idea of being in the new nest and being helpful in that moment for new moms and families was just really appealing to me. And I really enjoy, I love being part of that. Sometimes it's funny because sometimes I feel like the job is so, I think you have to be really clear about what it is, because one of the first things, especially if it's a gift, if someone's mother has gotten it for their daughter as a gift, it's just so what are you? What do you do? Why are you here?
You've described the two versions of it you've done, and they're fairly different jobs from the sound of it.
Oh, yeah. There are a lot of women that do both, or a lot of doulas that will do both. They'll do birth and postpartum, and that's ideal. That's a great package right there. But yeah, if you do it separately, it's a different bunch, different work. So lactation being the commonality, and that's another thing that I needed help with both of my kids. So that's something that I'm happy to aid in, and also with whatever they decide to do. I think a lot of it is just really making, at a very vulnerable time, reassuring and shoring up women so that they understand that what they want is valid, and that they are allowed to make their own decisions, and should, in terms of feeling strong in those moments and being able to establish some a real sense of who you are and how you want to do this, and babies respond to that, to that, no matter what the decision is, just to feel like you are doing your best and that you know what you want.
When you were sort of seeking it out and testing the water and taking those early courses, were you looking for work outside of music, something maybe a little steadier?
Yeah. Yes, that was another thing too. And piece of that originally was wanting to work more regularly at something because I like working. And that was part of it. And I had looked at other things. I took a couple of baking classes at the Cambridge Culinary School.
All very, very domestic things.
Yeah, well, just something. Well, part of that is, and another thing is that I didn't go to college. I got signed so young and just didn't.
You went to college.
Go. Yeah, I mean, so I a piece of it was doing something that I was interested in, that I wouldn't, having little kids at the time, that I wouldn't have to go back, start afresh in a full-time college situation. So that was part of it, and I feel like the doula thing just plugged in really well.
You went on the rock and roll pirate ship when you were, 14, 15 years old, right?
That's when we started playing, yeah.
Was there ever sort of a plan B for you, or it sounds like you got pretty swept up in it pretty quickly? I feel like, at the time with the Muses, Kristin and Dave both went, I think they went for a year each, took it, and then we all moved to Boston. But I bailed very quickly in the middle of starting in the first year, and just didn't at the time I was just sort of like, I think I felt like we're going to be doing this and I'm not feeling invested in anything else in particular. And so I was sort of waiting for the ship to sail, and it did. And then, in the back of my head, I always felt like, well, I'll go back someday when this has run its course. And then fortunately, it continued to be my job for a very long time. So it sounds like there wasn't a lot of slow time. You really were kind of going from one project to another for a while there.
Yeah, with a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. And because I just kept, things kept coming up and it was all exciting. And so I said yes to everything for a while, and happily. I mean, so those threads continued, some simultaneously, and then some, and then it separated out, and then it kind of just became Belly, and then that turned into solo and back to Belly again. So it just continues. And I even, I put out this series called the Swan Song Series, just very clearly saying goodbye and throwing myself a little goodbye party. At least in terms of I'm always going to write and I'm always going to play, but I was like, at the time I just felt like I'm just going to focus on Boston and just stay in Boston and do things here and there here, which is this very sort of fertile place for me. I love just driving up the street and singing at somebody's show, whatever,
but
guesting
you
or
felt
play.
like you were done being a touring musician.
Yes. Yeah. And I just felt like, I just want to put out a big final volume of something, and then just kind of, show up when people invited me to do stuff around here. That was my game plan. But then the act of collaborating on that project with all of these brilliant people and friends, and it just really restarted me. It just hit, all of that sort of dormant energy was just came back. I just kind of came back to it, came back to that life in a very, it's very modified in terms of touring. I don't have interest in turning into a workhorse
road dog
as far as touring goes again. Yeah. But just writing and working with people, and, just back to what I loved about it to begin with, which is making music with people.
Why did it feel so ultimate? Why did it feel like that was the end of that chapter of your life?
I think it just is so, it borders on just
the most annoying kind of narcissism. I just felt like, I think I'm just going to fade away without acknowledging it. You know, that's how I felt at the time. And
you had the Neil Young paradox, and you're like, this is the
Yeah.
road I'm taking.
Yes, yeah. And I felt like I had to make some sort of statement.
So you quite literally put it in the title of the project.
Yes, yeah. Very dramatic.
It's such a rock and roll thing too, to just be like, this is like the Rolling Stones thing.
Yeah,
Like, this is our last tour.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But it is, I mean, it's nice that the very thing that I was using as a tool, my exit strategy, ended up being something that really just changed my life again. And it was like this sounds so simplistic, but just a huge piece of it was realizing that this isn't a lonely venture. You know, there's nothing like I have this beautiful network of people who are, who it was the discovery of collaboration that brought me back in.
Do you think it was just prior to the project that you were still had a kind of a 90s music making mentality of, these very sort of specific boxes and the process and everything needs to happen versus going on SoundCloud or... Yeah.
And and I do think that is another awakening that I had, is that this is a wide open field of fair play now, where just anything goes, and you can do, you can craft this however you want to, and do as much or as little, and not have to sign a single document with anyone, which was also an epiphany. Also, it just feel like, oh wait, I don't. All of the old rules are gone. There's no set. Now you do. Here are the steps that you follow, and then you start. And then you hit the reset button, and you go back and you follow the steps again. That doesn't exist anymore, which is lovely.
It seems like of all the projects that Belly might have gone through the ringer the most when it comes to dealing with signing those papers, as you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we had, our trajectory was one that was just like fraught with peril back then.
Sure. But I mean, and part of it, I assume, was that, that you already had all this momentum from all of the projects leading up to it. It wasn't, you didn't have the luxury of starting from a place of being amateurs.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And I feel like we had all come from, I mean, all four of us have been in bands since we were teenagers. Yeah. And so I feel like we had this vibe initially of, okay, well, this band is just a natural progression from every place we've been. And so there was that camaraderie, and it felt like a real band initially. But then when everything exploded, we didn't have at the time that years long foundation, which we thought we had because we all had been working musicians our whole lives.
I mean, in the case of the Muses, you were quite literally related.
Yes. And that's another example where we grew up together and in the band and as little kids. And so we did have this sort of, we had relationships that were bigger than the band. And I have that with Belly now. Okay. I have to say,
you just had to go through the ringer to get it.
Yes, I had to go we had to go through the ringer to get it, a very long, decades-long ringer. But we have that same thing now of just the relationships almost come first. And then, happily, that also includes making music together. So, but we, things just got, this is such a well-worn story, but people get in your ear, and everyone has their own little factions of people, sort of pulling you this way and that way, and we just sort of fell apart. It wasn't even a cataclysmic thing. It was just this sort of like entropy. It just sort of
the air leaving the body.
Yes, exactly.
You did use the word exploded before. What do you mean exactly when you say that? You mean just in terms of everything kind of falling apart, or
Oh, the first time I used the word exploded?
Yeah.
I meant when everything got big.
Everything got big.
Very suddenly got big.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of the end? Like, success was the downfall?
Kind of. I mean, we enjoyed it it was exciting for a while. Yeah. And then I think the pressure just of the second record, and then it's for very different people. And at the time we had different ideas about how we wanted it to weave into our lives. And we're, again, same page now, but at the time, in the mid 90s, we were sort of, we didn't really sit down. If we had, I think about this now because there was someone on our label who said, well, what if you guys got a mediator?
Yeah.
And
a doula.
Yes, a band doula.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we just were at a point where we just didn't want to face that either.
Yeah.
It had gotten to such a nonverbal stage that the idea of a stranger coming in and cracking that open just felt unbearable to think of.
Did you see the Metallica documentary?
I did. I was actually talking to my brother about this yesterday. He's a huge Metallica fan,
but I mean, that's like them literally having a couples therapist for the band.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where we, I feel like at the time, the one thing that the four of us had in common back at that point was deep tissue stubbornness.
So non-communication was the common thread there.
Yeah. And these are people I love, know, and so it was heartbreaking. And we've gotten back to it.
Yeah.
We got back to a good place because there was a short conversation, before the reunion. Okay, so do we do that mediation thing now, or do we just draw a line in the sand and
never speak
look
of it
back?
again?
And we're like, option 2, please.
Yeah. I get the feeling that part of the reason why it succeeded this time around is because there were like zero expectations. I mean, like I was reading some interviews that you did, and you didn't expect people to buy. You thought that when people were buying tickets that they thought it was the other belly.
We did. Yeah. And
why would anyone possibly want to see this?
I know. It was exciting. Yeah. I know. That was a very exciting. Yeah. It was, nice to find out that people missed us, and a lot of people who were too young to see us when it happened got, had the opportunity to finally see it live. So that was a huge chunk of those people. So,
but for you, the stakes were low. There was no ego because when you don't expect people to come out, there aren't egos bashing against each other.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was, I feel like, it was something that we really had to do for ourselves. Just in terms of making sure we don't, or I'm going to have to say because I don't want to speak for them, but that would have been a deathbed regret for me.
Not having gotten back together?
Yeah. Just having ended with such a lingering question mark forever. And having those relationships be frayed and, it's just been such a healing thing. I hate to use that word, but I think for all of us to be able to fix something, to be able to fix something broken that felt unfixable, that's such a huge gift. I mean, just anyone can relate to that, that there are things we've all broken things. And to have the opportunity to fix that has been something I didn't think we were going to get to do, because it's not just the band. We come from a very small town. Relationships were affected by this. Our families were affected by this. The Gorman and Donelly families spent holidays together. It was more than just making sure we made another record. Like, that's not what it was. That was a lovely byproduct of it. It was
that wasn't even the goal initially.
No.
So that was really the only of your projects that was kind of left off in that state.
Yeah.
I mean, so the other relationships with the other bands have always,
fine.
you still talk to them and are still friendly.
Yeah.
And,
yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I was just texting Kim yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's the only huge acrimonious moment of my life. And that is another thing that I, just used to, I'd be just kind of going about my daily life and something would, just like trigger that breakup, and I would immediately just feel just gross.
Yeah. And it was left in that state until the reunion?
Gail and I were close through, pretty quickly after and then throughout. And the guys and I, again, I'm really close to their sister is one of my best lifelong friends. Their parents I'm super close to. So we still saw each other occasionally, and still, there wasn't any, it didn't end in a brawl.
Sure.
But there was just always this discomfort and unhappiness around it, which is no longer the case.
It's so interesting, though, that's sort of the solution to that problem is like, let's try to recreate some of the things that got us in this in the first. It's like, it's like going through a breakup. You're not like, well, let's start dating
move back
again.
in together.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And if anything, it seems like the exact wrong thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. You're really right. I actually had thought about it, but that's absolutely true. But I think it's the only, we missed play. I mean, simply, we also missed playing our music together. And I've always written really, really well with Tom and with Gail. So, and Chris too, we all, I think, missed working together, but you're right. It's an odd sort of lab.
Was it the sort of thing where over the years, somebody had kind of floated the idea here and there and it just never came together?
Yeah, I think so. It would come up every few years in some faction of us would be sort of, do you think we could? How would that go? And then it just sort of either one or two people would kibosh it immediately, or it was just sort of disappear into the ether. It was just,
well, there's so many moving parts. Like even if you all were best friends, there's so much of, everybody's life, whether they're in other bands or just family, kids, things kind of have to go on hold for a little while, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And we find, and that is another thing, is that we did find ourselves, in sync with the being ready emotionally. We also found ourselves in a place where our kids were relatively self-cleaning, of an age where they could be cared for,
Self-cleaning. They're not ovens.
The businesses could be left for, a few weeks at a time, like, stuff like that. So it did, and even still, the longest tours that as we chunked up the tours to make sure, Gail's partner has to take on all of their business when she leaves, and it's a lot. Chris has little kids, I have kids, that's a lot. Tom has a business. We all have stuff that we can do it, and it makes it possible, but that doesn't mean that we don't have crazy catch up when we get home. So it still has to be on a very modified plan.
For you, when the kids first came along, did it feel like that chapter of your life might be over?
No. And actually, when I first came along, I was in the studio with her strapped to me pretty quickly, and we toured when she was a baby up until No, it wasn't. No, but that was also, my husband was with me at that point. Yeah. He was my musical partner at that point also, which made things...
musician is helpful.
Yes. Oh, it's so helpful, especially when that musician plays with you.
Yeah.
So that actually made everything much, much more portable. Our whole family, everything was portable at that point. Once school kicked in, that changed a little bit. I also just started to feel like, I know a lot. There are kids that are that grow up on the road and it's fine. I started to feel like it wasn't the greatest fit for us. And then Hattie came along and we really just wanted to chill it out after that. But I do feel, again, back to like saying that, just to your point of music making being a much more fluid field now, I think that also it's benefit. You know, I don't feel like the urgency to tour, that's the only sustaining act.
Yeah.
Because that can actually be, you know, a money pit nowadays. You know, depending on who you are and where you fall, it can actually be, you know, sort of a poor model for what, you know, how you should be spending your time, you know. And I really feel like I just want to focus on writing a lot. I think we all sort of feel like that right now.
You seem to have adapted to home life pretty well, though. You know, you seem to enjoy this aspect, this chapter of your life.
Yeah. I'm a homebody.
Yeah.
I am. I mean, I like having, you know, my dog over there, my kid upstairs, you know, it makes me happy.
Did you start to miss it? Did you start to miss going out?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I miss both. You see that?
Yeah. You miss the thing you can't
exactly.
have. Yeah.
Yes.
Was there ever sort of a point in your life when it just felt like that music is just completely in your past, that this is your life now, and then that's maybe okay?
I think when I started Swan Song, that was that was the objective. It hadn't yet really occurred, but that was the game plan, is that
that was still fairly recently, though.
Yeah. One thing that I realized, though, when we went out on, you know, actually my first, not Belly, but I did a tour with the Muses where I opened for them, and then I played a subset with them, and we toured England and Scotland and here, and being out and seeing people that I hadn't seen in years who were part of, you know, these friendships that I'd made via music and just my global musical community of friends, you know, fans who had become friends, people that I used to work with, people that I met through, you know, just reconnecting with those people made me realize how important touring is, even if it happens only every few years, just to make sure that I maintain that connective tissue, because those people are so important to me, and it's hard to maintain those relationships without FaceTime, without that face-to-face, and you know, just having that widespread village of people back in my life was just wonderful, and continues to be. So that was another unexpected perk.